Just when you think it's quiet around here, look, there's Bill Moos and an investigation.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network, your team every day. And today's episode is sponsored by FanDuel. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with a bet on FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game.
All right, welcome. It's Tuesday here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you. Double podcast Tuesday. We have one that, depending on when you're listening to this, also came out early this morning with Mitch and Nick over from Locked On Boilermakers to talk about Nebraska and Purdue basketball tonight at Pinnacle Bank Arena. A big game, top 15 game, Big Ten standings, things like that. Everything's all on the line. Bill Raftery's in the house, which I
Kevin
always
Kugler.
enjoy. With Hall of Famer Kevin Kugler. It's gonna have a big feel, so make sure you check out that pod like the second you get done with this, or hopefully you're coming over from that. And as Mitch mentioned, a little bit of a busy afternoon on Monday, just with randomness.
Yes.
Nebraska reportedly, for the record, before I even say this out loud, this is a giant nothing like sandwich. But reportedly under investigation by the College Sports Commission because of somebody who didn't report a NIL deal in-house or something like that. I read through what they reported. It didn't seem like much of anything at all.
We'll spell it out a bit in the second segment today. The College Sports Commission is a new organization, admittedly, but has never punished a school or, to my knowledge, an individual. So we'll see, though. It's a development, and we'll get to that in the second segment. We're also going to talk in that segment about Bill Moos, who has released a book. Probably heard some things about this book that was coming from Nebraska's former athletic director. There are some interesting things in it, some surprising developments, some that are not so surprising, but still interesting.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say, I saw way less surprising things than I saw surprising things. That's for sure.
some of it may be surprising that he put it in his book, but not necessarily surprising that it happened. Yeah. So we'll discuss some of that in the second segment of this show. But right now, we are going to continue. Nothing can deter us from talking about spring football practice. How the train rolls forward. So we will continue our discussion leading up to the start of spring football practice next Saturday, February 21st. We're going through day by day Nebraska's position groups as a preview of spring.
Mitch,
yesterday,
I saw Nebraska's spring schedule today, and I saw it laid out practice by practice, and I thought, ooh, here we go. We have a schedule. It is locked in, which is fantastic. Yeah, so they're gonna.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, they're gonna go. The first practice is Saturday, and then they'll go Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday, and then it's long break. And then they'll practice like basically every day before the spring game on the 28th of March.
Oh, so they're going to pack more than just 3 practices in after spring break leading up to the.
They're going to try and do 4 plus the spring game after.
So March 28th is the spring game. Yeah. I missed the schedule. I'm going to have to go peruse my emails and
I don't know if it's in any. I saw this from.
Oh, you have some. You have some inside connections. I see what's going on. All right. Well, good. That's really good. It's probably going to come out fairly soon. Do you still have me?
Yeah, now I do. You cut off for a second, but hopefully I didn't hear that on the podcast. But yes, I saw something. I was sent something, so here it is.
Very good. Very good. I'm glad that you have that information. I will be looking for it when it gets released by Nebraska, but I'm glad to know what's going on. So today we're going to break down the running backs. Monday it was the quarterbacks. We went through what Nebraska has coming back and who's new. And we listed everybody because there's only 4. Not that many more in the running back room. So let's just go through this thing and list these players. And this is by seniority, at least seniority in terms of their eligibility. So Vincent Genatone is a senior. He's the only senior in the room among the running backs. Quentin Ives is your junior. Mekhi Nelson is a sophomore. Isaiah Mosey is a sophomore, a second-year sophomore, did not redshirt. Isaac Dickey is a sophomore. Gone back and forth between fullback and running back. They don't really have a fullback anymore. So then we got Connor Booth, who is a redshirt freshman, and the true freshman, Jamal Rule, coming in. He is in Lincoln right now. What do you make of this group altogether? Connor.
Sorry, Connor. I'm cutting. Sorry, there's another device that is attempting to connect to my computer, so I lose you for a second. But yes, that's the rundown of the. Yeah, it's fantastic. So yeah, it's that's the room, and as we've talked about before, it sort of leaves a little to be desired. Is there a leader in the room?
I think there is.
Yeah, who is it?
I think it's Mekhi Nelson. I think, and I'm not basing this on him having a couple of nice runs in the Las Vegas Bowl. I think this is about who Mekhi Nelson is, and I don't think we know Mekhi Nelson. Like, I don't think the Nebraska football public, the audience, Nebraska football fan base knows Mekhi Nelson. I do think people will be pleasantly surprised as they get to know him and learn more about like what he's like away from the field. And really that's all it's been, or that's mostly what it's been to this point. I think he was tentative when he got the football the first few times in his second year as a Husker this last season, 2025, first year where he was getting really any kind of reps at all. But we saw it in spurts, and I think we'll see it a lot more in 2026. I think he's definitely the leader, like the person that they will look to. I think Nelson and Mosey are the two horses, who they expect to be the 2 horses, the players who are going to receive the majority of the carries. If they came out with a pre-spring depth chart, which presumably they have in-house, I think it would list Nelson and Mosey above everyone else. And then really you'd have Quentin Ives and nobody else with any kind of a leg to stand on as far as experience and what they might warrant with as far as reps in practice. So yeah, Nelson is your guy, but does Nebraska have a Big Ten ready running back? That he's not. He has not proven that to this point.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. But yeah, that's sort of interesting to hear. Like he's, I think he would be the favorite as far as like the sort of voice and the guy. I mean, he's the guy who's got the most carries under his belt, doesn't he?
Yes.
Nelson. So probably not by much. Gosh, we should look at that honestly. But you look that up. Quentin
Ives is a guy I think that's overlooked in this room, and it's not because we aren't doing our due diligence. It's that Quentin Ives has been in the program for 3 years and has had some injuries. I think he was poised for some kind of a breakout. How much he would have actually broken out in his second season or as a sophomore this last fall remains in question. With the year, obviously, that Emmett Johnson ended up having, and Nebraska expected Emmett Johnson to be the guy, the horse going into the season. But Ives, in the first practice of August last year, had a hamstring injury, and that kind of torpedoed his preseason and really much for him at all in the first few games. And once you're behind the curve and September has passed, it's a tough road to get back. So that was the story with Quentin Ives last year, but I think he's a bit overlooked in like what might become of the group this year.
All right, you ready for this? So
yeah,
career carries: Mekhi Nelson, 28; Quentin Ives, 26; Isaiah Mosey, 26.
Oh, well, they're pretty close.
Yep.
And that's not a lot.
No.
That's not a lot of carries. Fewer than 90 carries between Nebraska's top 3 running backs. For the record, and we've gone through this a bit in the the fallout from the portal period. I think Nebraska made a mistake here. I think that Matt Rule and Pat Stewart erred in determining that Nebraska had everything that it needed at the running back spot. We saw last year on day one of camp what can happen. And if one guy goes down, yeah, you're lucky that you had Emmett Johnson. Yeah. Ives came into the season last year as the 2. They don't have Emmett Johnson this year, and I don't honestly know what they have. I think they're thin and inexperienced and, frankly, not ready to be a team to be the team at running back that you need to be going into the teeth of this season.
Well, here's the thing. I think people dream big about the position because it's a position that has had, a bunch of historical success, and Nebraska's found a way to have great running backs over a really long period of time now. And then you look at what they have coming back, 28, 26 carries for those top 3 guys. And, I looking at that, I would have taken just a guy who, their excuse was the salary cap, and it's like, hey, do we want to go out and pay a bunch of money for, like, you don't have to. You don't have to get a guy who's an all Big Ten candidate next season, or was all AAC, last year, or whatever it might have been. Like, you don't have to do that. Get a guy who's been around for a little while, has 100 carries under his belt, and throw him in the room with the rest of them. It doesn't tell you anything about his playing time, or Ives playing time, or Nelson's playing time, or Mosey's playing time. Like, I just want another guy in the mix. My expectations were low, and I think they fell below those. And so they are rolling. They are big. It's a gamble. What they're doing. So this one, we talked about sort of the variance in the quarterback room yesterday. This is one where it's like the variance is gigantic, and it's hard for me to really see a ceiling that is really good at this position, and unless they somehow are able to sort of piece it together with all 3 of those guys, or a breakout from Booth or something like that. And then the floor is quite low, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can really be a dreamer here and say that we just don't know because we haven't seen these players, and the coaches know, and Matt Rule and Dana Holgorsen believe in Mekhi Nelson and Isaiah Mosey to start with, and then they think they have a short yardage guy in Ives, and they also believe in a couple of these young players, at least one of the young players, at least Booth or Jamal Rule, the true freshman. The best case scenario is that they think they really have something ready to go in one of these players. And if all of that turns out to be accurate, then and you can piece it together. Like, I don't think under any illusion Nebraska is going to have a 1,200 yard rusher next season. That's not in the plans. Their plan is to have 2, 3, maybe 4 backs who they rely on in situations and riding the hot hand to be able to get it done, to be able to piece it together. And that's like, hey, if you got a 30% chance to win a game, and then a 40% chance to win a game, and then a 50% chance to win a game, and a 25% chance to win a game, like, the chances that you're going 4-0 are really, really slim. And I feel like that's kind of the odds they're up against at running back to put this thing together the way that they're hoping.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's always a part of this that crosses my mind in the offseason too, of like, we always sort of map it out as like, hey, can you get 3 guys with 400 yards or something like that? Can you get 3 guys with 300 yards? You're like, okay, then you can make it make sense. But really what Nebraska's trying to get and accomplish, it's like Moneyball. You make the comparison to Moneyball. They weren't trying to replace Damon and Giambi. They were trying to replace their their ability to go. So what Nebraska is trying to recreate is their ability, Emmett Johnson's ability to get first downs, like continue the ball moving down the field. And, it's hard for me to imagine that they're better in that category.
You need playmakers. You need playmakers at running back, and someone's going to have to emerge. So we'll continue to talk about this more as the offseason goes along, I'm sure. First, when Nebraska gets into spring practice, and many times over the months ahead. All right, let's take a break. We're overdue, and we'll come back. We'll talk about all the weird stuff that was happening on campus and around college football involving Nebraska on Monday. That is next.
All right, but first, a word from Mazda in this week's Moving the Game Forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on screen, the player that we are highlighting this week is the Dutchman, Rink Mast. He has been moving the game forward, especially on Saturday for Nebraska at the rack, scoring 26 points. He is back. He is not puking 15 times anymore. He gave Nebraska a little bit of a spark on offense, and if he could add back that 3-point ball, you'll see it, and he'll bring that never quit kind of grit to the floor. Mazda puts that same passion as Rink does into every model of vehicle. Highlights make the reel, but what it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
And a word from Wayfair. The new year is here, and it's a perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and how it feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh and go toward March and be fresh with it. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home revamp all in one place. If you're updating your living room, maybe you're organizing some space, upgrading your work from home setup. I know that that's been a priority for me here at times in this 2026 calendar year. Got to have a space to do the podcast and the writing. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and your budget. Shopping's easy, delivery's smooth, everything arrives as expected. It makes getting into the routine a lot more manageable. So get organized, refreshed, and back on track for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Welcome back. Tuesday episode of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Mitch Sherman, Connor Happer with you. Thanks for making Locked On your first listen of today, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. All right, the more interesting of these two odd stories that developed on Monday is the Bill Moos book. So, as we said, Nebraska's former AD, to refresh you, he was hired amid turmoil in the 2017 calendar year, strictly to do a couple of things. One, to fire Mike Riley, who was struggling as a coach in his third season. And then second, to hire Scott Frost, who it had been determined by the time Bill Moos took over in October of that year was the chosen one, was the coach to move Nebraska forward and out of its doldrums of the past 10 to 15 years at that point. Moos abruptly retired in June of 2021. This was right before Scott Frost's final full season. So that's when Trev Alberts came in. Should we go through some of the early takeaways from Bill Moos's book? Would you like to light the candle, start the party, see where where do you want to go with this?
He's talked a lot over the years about especially at the introductory press conference for Frost himself, the line of, when we went to Philadelphia, it wasn't just cheesesteaks, yes. That meeting and obviously Nebraska wasn't, nobody was thinking here like, oh, what happened in there, just that they got the job done and got Scott Frost to agree to come back to Nebraska. But upon further review on Moose's side, he apparently felt that Frost or him and his wife felt that
Bill and his wife,
felt that Frost was a little immature and not maybe ready, but then ultimately came to the conclusion that if he didn't hire him, that would be bad news for him. And he may have been right. About that.
He was right about that.
He
didn't get a good vibe from Frost.
Yeah.
And he was upset. Moose was upset that Matt Davison was in the room. You remember Matt Davison worked for the Nebraska athletic department at the time as a radio voice on the football broadcast, and I believe he was doing basketball then, and he worked in various roles that became elevated once Frost took the job as the Nebraska head coach. Of course, Frost and Davison go way back to their playing days in the 90s. So Davison was the one who kind of orchestrated this thing. At least that's as the story goes, and I don't have any reason to think differently. Back in 2017, Davison went to Bill Moos and said, "Hey, this is somebody that we need to be looking at." And Moos is like, "Oh, look, he's undefeated at UCF, and the whole world is talking about this guy. Yeah, let's set up a meeting." And they did when UCF was playing at Temple on that weekend in November of 2017. We did not know that Bill and Scott got off to a rocky start. So not shocking, honestly. Like, Scott Frost isn't a charmer. That's never been his kind of style. Like, he's been very successful at lots of endeavors in his life, but it's not because like he's the best in the business at like schmoozing and like, "Hey, Scott, would you like a cocktail here? I mean, let's chat about your vision for Nebraska football." Like, that's not who he is.
Yeah, it's so now both sides have, and both Moos and Frost have admitted, like, yeah, I wasn't super fired up about whether it was the first meeting or just being at Nebraska in general. And yet it still ended up happening. So got off on rocky footing and never really recovered. The big picture, I think, that he was trying to get across from the excerpts that I've seen, and Josh Peterson was tweeting these out on Monday, is it sort of underlies, which won't be a surprise to anybody, the dysfunction as far as the leadership was concerned. There was just a lot of voices and a lot of opinions from both Moos, who feels he wasn't allowed to do his job as he wanted to, from guys like Hank Bounds and Ronnie Green, and then obviously there's the whole Frost part of it as well. Not a surprise, obviously.
Let's dive into that, and we don't have all day, but I did want to highlight this. This is all from Moos. Like, there can be other sides to this story, but in 2019, when Nebraska basketball was doing all right, but seemed to be sputtering under Tim Miles, Bill Moos, and I think most observers of the program, or many observers of the program, and some in the leadership, agreed with him that a change was in order at the top of the program, and Moos planned to fire Tim Miles, and for whatever reason felt good about his ability to hire Dana Altman. Moos wanted to hire Dana Altman, the former Creighton coach, the Nebraska native who had been at Oregon for a while. In fact, took Oregon to the Final Four in 2017, just 2 years before this, in the Elite Eight in 2016. And Moos went to the leadership at Nebraska, which included Ronnie Green, the chancellor, and said that he wanted to make this move, and he felt that he could corral Dana Altman away from Eugene, Oregon. And none other than Jim Pillen, who was a member of the Board of Regents at the time, just flat out said no. Pillen, of course, is now the governor of the state of Nebraska. So, hey, Jim Pillen is the reason that Fred Hoiberg got hired at Nebraska, because he vetoed, which he shouldn't be doing as a regent. He vetoed Moos's choice of Dana Altman, according to Moos. And then Moos pivoted and hired Fred Hoiberg, who nearly got fired a few years later, but has now turned into the National Coach of the Year leading candidate.
Yeah, I don't think Dana would have done it anyway, but Moos obviously felt from his time at Oregon and his connections that he was, he at least had an inroad there, which I don't think ultimately Dana would have done it. But this
is kind of juicy because the person at the center of this, Pillen, as I said, is the governor,
but wasn't
it does. He wasn't. He was, but he was in an important position as within the. He was a member of the Board of Regents and a former Nebraska football player. Is still a former Nebraska football player and a presence around the Nebraska athletic department, even as the governor, and probably had more reason to be a presence around the athletic department, around the university as a region. Although he's definitely still involved in university matters and university politics as the governor. Look, I don't want to. Anytime you start talking about Pillen or anyone in politics, it can quickly become a heated topic. I don't really care what party he represents as a regent, it's not his job to be vetoing or approving the hires of major coaches at the university. Like, he's overstepping by doing that, and it's dysfunctional. And for us to sit here and say that's the only time something like this happened, because we're reading about it in a book here, it must be the only time. It's not the only time. Like, clearly that kind of stuff was going on, whether it was Pillen or somebody else in a leadership position who was trying to pull the strings. And it's been a symptom of Nebraska's problem for years and years and years that go back to the almost to the 90s.
Yeah. And that's the big picture. So there's gonna be more on this, and there was more, just sort of, the stuff about the Oklahoma game, and there's a little bit on that. So maybe we could sort through some of that over the next several days and weeks here, but that's the main story. A lot of people, a lot of different opinions, and too many cooks in the kitchen, probably.
When we have a quiet moment on the pod here over the next month or 2 months or 3 months, we'll just pull up Story Time with Bill Moos and dig into something that that came out in his book and react to it. So most of this stuff is water under the bridge, but the overall dysfunction is notable. All right, we're going to take a break and then come back, and we'll get to this thing about the College Sports Commission and Nebraska and the investigation. And we're also going to talk briefly about Nebraska Purdue basketball after this.
But first, word from TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. TurboTax full service. You can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. So they are going to handle everything, W-2s, self-employed forms, and get to work for you on every single deduction. You can upload your documents right there to the site with the TurboTax app. And it's a big time saver for you. So take advantage of this, and take advantage of this offer. For a limited time, you could have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, all you have to do is file by the end of the month, February 28th. Take your taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. Okay, and then this story with the College Sports Commission. This was a reporting done by Front Office Sports that Nebraska, along with LSU being the first, is the second institution known to have an inquiry from the CSC about NIL related issues, reporting to the clearinghouse, and there apparently was just some confusion, it seems, by athletes themselves on what was supposed to get reported or the timing in which it was supposed to get reported. And that's where we sit.
That's Nebraska's story, according to the emails obtained through a public records request by Front Office Sports. Nebraska's response to the CSC was that, oops, it was a clerical error, and we had some confusion about the timing of when this was supposed to be reported. It's possible that this is something more sinister, more nefarious, that there was deception involved here. I think we're living under a rock if we believe that athletic departments around the country and major sports programs are being upfront with everything about the way that NIL is working. And if they're, and even if they are, they're not doing it in the spirit of NIL in the way that it was created, not even close. So the way that the CSC set this up in response to the House settlement. I'm sorry, I'm losing everybody now. People are falling asleep. They're turning off their computers. The CSC said last summer, if you got a deal of more than $600, you need to report it to the clearinghouse. And then everybody kind of looked up from their computers or their, handing out $100 bills and was like, what'd you say? Never mind. Like, we're going to go back to doing our business. Like, talk to us when you have something that you can, with teeth behind it. And that's, there are schools that say, no, we're not going to do anything that could even push the envelope. And then there is Nebraska that says we're going to do everything we can to go right up to the line without putting ourselves in jeopardy of getting in trouble. And maybe Nebraska does get in some kind of trouble over this, but the CSC has never punished anyone. And it's not the NCAA. Maybe it will emerge in the future as the organization that does punish colleges and athletes and hand down suspensions and restrictions and whatever it might be. But we're a long ways away from that with Nebraska. And I think the most likely scenario here is that it's handled with whoever the athlete or athletes are who were involved in this, and Nebraska goes about its business without a whole lot coming out in a negative way in the future.
That would be my guess as well. That nothing really comes of this, just because, like you said, there's a lack of precedent here. I don't know. I don't know where they would go and things like that. So I don't know. My guess would be that this will just sort of blow over, and you move on.
I don't think this is Dylan Raiola got $1 million from Adidas and you failed to report it. I don't think that's what's going on here. It's probably something less, less significant than that. Yeah.
Agreed. All right. Tonight, we have basketball at Pinnacle Bank Arena. Purdue and Nebraska. Purdue is at 19-4. Of course, Nebraska is coming in at 21-2 on the season. A big battle near the top of the Big Ten. Purdue is taking a couple of losses recently. They're 9-3, so they need this one bad to get a big road win against Nebraska. Nebraska trying to yet again prove itself as against one of the top teams in the league. And it's a tricky one. I mean, Purdue hasn't been playing particularly well recently. Nebraska, Nebraska played well against Rutgers. Purdue just got away with one against Oregon over the weekend, but they're a tough guard because they have the ability to, shoot threes from basically every position. They have the bigs. So does Nebraska's, tried and true strategy of swarming the paint and running guys off the 3-point line, continue to work, or are the shooters too good for Purdue? On the other side, I mean, Purdue's defense is just, I think both teams just if you take a sample size of the last 5 or 7 games, both teams would tell you that their defense hasn't been quite what it was at an earlier portion of the season. So I don't really know what kind of game we're going to get out of that. It'll be fascinating. My guess would be it'll be close, but it'll be a big environment tonight.
Braden Smith is the Purdue playmaker in the backcourt who came into this season as perhaps thought to be the best player in the Big Ten, and he I don't want to say he's having a disappointing year. He can be electric, but you see Purdue sitting there with 4 losses. And in my conversation with Nick Arvin, you can hear that on the crossover episode. His take on it was Purdue entered this season, it was national championship or bust, and number 1 in the preseason. I believe Purdue was number 1 in the preseason. Purdue was number 1 the last time it came to Pinnacle Bank Arena 2 years ago, when Nebraska pulled off a huge upset that boosted its NCAA tournament profile, and of course got into the NCAA tournament for the only time so far for another month under Fred Hoiberg. So this game is probably not that steep of a climb for Nebraska. Huskers are a 1.5-point favorite as of Monday night, but anytime you play Purdue, rebounding is going to be an issue. They bring a 7'4" player off of the bench to go with the 6'11" and 6'9" in the front court. So Nebraska will try not to get murdered on the offensive boards and not allow second chance points and then heat it up from beyond the arc.
Yeah, Kaufman-Wren is the guy probably you got to be worried about on the rebounding side. He's kind of just one of those really physical. He's the 6'9" guy you mentioned, just sort of a physical presence there. And then Smith and Lawyer can really shoot it. And then you got to deal with Clough down there, the transfer from South Dakota State by way of, I think, Washington State in his first year. Yeah. So there's a reason why they thought, this was a team, and most of it is Smith, who's returning as one of the best players in the country. But it's just been a little choppy over the last couple of weeks for them, and so we'll see if Nebraska can maybe throw that first punch and take advantage.
I would expect Purdue to really want it. And Nick brought up, and I don't think this is necessarily on the mind of Nebraska, but it matters. He brought up the double bye in the Big Ten tournament, and Purdue's right there on the cusp of that, fighting for that double bye. And I don't think either one of these teams is looking at the Big Ten tournament as the goal, but being a top 4 seed in the Big Ten tournament means a lot, most likely, to where your seed is going to be a week later. And they are both fighting right now on that like 2-3 line. So Nebraska would like to move up, would love to get back in the conversation to be a 1, but I think a 2 would be fantastic in order to stay there in the bracketology. A win against Purdue, which is the highest ranked team left on Nebraska's schedule. This is the opportunity to get the biggest boost in the metrics that Nebraska has remaining, although a win at Iowa or even the wins on the road at the California schools would be big as well. This is just statistically the best team that's left out there for Nebraska to beat before it goes to Chicago in March.
Yeah, an opportunity for a little bit of separation. If you can get Purdue that 4th loss, that doesn't quite put them out of the picture yet for that double bye, but it creates some good separation between, like the top 4 and then the next sort of group, and that would be Michigan, Illinois, Nebraska, Michigan State, who just beat Illinois in that conversation. To give Purdue their 4th loss would create the space that you're looking for there.
All right. Love it. 6 p.m. tonight, FS1. If you can't make it to the game, check out Kevin Kugler and Bill Raftery. That will be fantastic. I will be there watching, and we'll be back with the show for you at some point on Wednesday to discuss that, continue with our spring football preview series, see what else came out of Bill Moos's book, and who knows where it's going to go. But thanks for tuning in today to Locked On Nebraska. Be sure to join us tomorrow for all of the reaction to Nebraska basketball. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Nebraska so you get all of the latest episodes. Check out the crossover episode with Locked On Boilers. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. And on audio, make sure your second listen is the Locked On College Football Show. Thank you for joining us today.